All right, so we're going to start tonight. And first of all, I would like to really welcome you here, especially tonight. I mean, I was wondering, how many people are going to show up? Going to be glued to our devices to hear the Super Tuesday results. But there's more than that, I think, as I think the situation we're in as a world and as a nation is so extraordinary with this coronavirus and the uncertainty. We don't know what it means, what it will mean. And I was thinking about that and the fact that here we are, you who are here, and I'll be giving a short talk, and you can wonder, aren't there more important things to be doing on a night, especially tonight? And I would like to say, I think this is a priority for us if we're spiritual seekers. I don't mean just coming to tonight's talk, but I mean our practice, your practice. There's every evidence that the near future is going to be more uncertain, and we don't know what we're facing with the virus, much less with our presidential election. A lot of uncertainty. Everything, all of these things, all this uncertainty, the fear, the anger, or whatever else is here, all of it can be used and is, I think, cause for us to move deeper into our spiritual path. It's not like that spiritual path is way out there and we'll put it off until we really got things settled here. Frankly, they never get settled. I think we've all realized that. But by golly, they're more unsettled now than they usually are. It seems to me it's a real teaching. And the teaching is just how very important although we all are, but you are on your very specific path. So tonight, I'm going to start with a talk, a discussion. There'll be time for questions. And then we will have a meditation. So I'm flipping what is our frequent order tonight. And what I want to talk about tonight is, I've called it the evolution of mindfulness practice. And before I do, I want to say, is there anybody here? I know that we have a couple of brand new, who have never been to IMCC before. I welcome you. Yes. And of those, have you practiced insight meditation before? Have you practiced insight meditation? Okay. So welcome to everybody, and to you who are new with us. And for those who are coming back after a long time, we have some people also. If you have practiced mindfulness at any time, you're familiar with it, and you know that mindfulness means directing the mind, a moment-by-moment attention to any object of awareness. And we usually, in our formal practice, use the breath, body sensations, sometimes sounds, and sometimes other things. But when we formally meditate, we choose an object of awareness, and we focus on that object of awareness with the effort not to chatter, have that inner conversation going on. And when there is, we notice and gently bring back attention. Mindfulness, we all know. And some of us know that really, really well. So I can see everybody. The plant is kind of blocking David. Wrong feng shui is what it is. So some of us know it really well. We've been doing it for years. Tonight, what I would like to suggest is that the kind of mindfulness meditation that we've been doing actually, as our practice deepens, evolves, or can evolve. And that's what I want to talk about this time. As we deepen in our spirituality, I think we come to recognize, that there is something missing or something more. And I believe that this something is what the Buddha pointed to. For some of you who have many of you haven't, but for some of you who have read the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, know that's scripture, the Satipatthana Sutta. This is what he was pointing to. At the end of that scripture, he said, you need to practice this sort of mindfulness for only 7 days, and you will be assured of final knowledge here and now. Final knowledge here and now. That means attainment, that means enlightenment, that means whatever words. Final knowledge here and now doesn't only mean right here on this date in this place, but it means in the timeless here and now. This is what I think he was referring to. And as we practice our mindfulness, I think we begin to question, wait a minute, how am I going to get, especially some of us have been doing a long time, how am I going to get to final knowledge here and now by watching my breath or watching my body? There seems to be kind of a disconnect, and I've heard sometimes students who are a bit frustrated will kind of ask that question. It's like, I feel like I'm white-knuckling it, but it doesn't feel like it's going somewhere. So what I would like to say is that the answer is we're doing nothing wrong if you feel like it's not quite, there's something missing still. It's not wrong. The Buddha taught this. This was important. And I will say this is like, I was trying to think of a word for it. Maybe you'll say a fundamental mindfulness or the introductory mindfulness. And it's enormously important. I think all of us have discovered that. We could also call it, and I will for tonight, and it's not in the scriptures, but a first kind of mindfulness, simply to distinguish it from where I am pointing to. Our first kind of mindfulness, what we all practice, is really powerful, as I think so many of us have found out. And I think there are two basic reasons. First of all, in mindfulness practice, what we do, as we know, we pull back. When our mind and thoughts get caught up in a story or in emotion, what do? We learn that we can pull out gently and kindly. We unhook, and we come back to our object of attention, whether it's the breath or the body or whatever. What a powerful lesson. It's teaching us, retraining our mind to disentangle from the immediate stories of the emotions or the thoughts that are unfolding, to disentangle and to come to a quieter place. That is the first lesson that we're learning. And how can we not appreciate that lesson? We become less identified with our stories, less, we could say, enchanted, and many people do call it. And we get enchanted with our stories and our thoughts and how they unwind. Anybody who's practicing mindfulness knows, I think, or has experienced what that decrease in enchantment means. But I think there's also a second reason why our mindfulness practice is so powerful. It helps us grow up in our everyday life in living. As we learn to step back and become less entangled, we are able to be present in a new way to what's going on, make clearer choices. So the beauty of that practice is powerful. But then, as I just said, there still is a limit to it. And that's the sense, and I think that we know deep down in our heart, we hear it sometimes like, wait a minute, there's something more. The heart longs for it, longs for something. In fact, I would even say the heart knows it. It can't not know it. I won't go into why that's true, but we begin to realize that the first kind of mindfulness that we're practicing somehow not only doesn't, but can't fulfill that longing. That kind of mindfulness, there's a lot of people who say, talking about the first kind of mindfulness, you can't get there from here. You can't get to that sense of what the heart is yearning from with that first kind of mindfulness, if it stays exactly as it is. Why not? Because in the first kind of mindfulness, by definition, what it is doing, there is a me, a sense of self involved. I have chosen an anchor for my attention, and I am gently, kindly bringing my attention back whenever it wanders, as it will do. So there's a me involved in that kind of mindfulness. Must be. Can't be otherwise if you're doing just that. Soon as there's a me involved, there's a sense of what? Of separation. a sense of things that we're not connected to. There's a me, so there's a you. There's a me, so there's an other. There's a me, so there are all kinds of objects around. So we are, just by definition, there's some kind of separation. And that longing of the heart that longs for this kind of unity, our universal connection, that maybe kind of universal harmony or peace that we just intuitively feel, that can't be fulfilled through the first kind of mindfulness, where I am controlling my thoughts and so forth. In fact, the first kind of mindfulness reinforces a sense of a me, of a self. Hey, I'm getting good at it. Well, I don't know anybody who says, I'm always good at mindfulness. It goes up and down like that. But you do know you're making some progress. But in the sense, what that's doing is reinforcing a sense of me who's in there doing it and really trying hard. And it has its beauties. I think there's an assumption. I think we have an assumption when we do that. Is at some point, I'm going to get so good at this that I'm going to, right out of the atmosphere and into, enlightenment or something. And what I'm suggesting here is, as long as there's the me involved in it, it can't happen like that. It's not like we're going to become so improved and so perfect that we're going to attain. So while the first kind of mindfulness has powerful benefits and powerfully helps us, it doesn't respond to the heart's longing. It's not what the Buddha was talking about when he said final knowledge here and now. I think what he was referring to, without using those words, is what we might call a second kind of mindfulness. And that's so crude, those labels, but maybe they're kind of clear anyway. I think he was referring to an evolution that happens. And that happens when we practice intensely, where we when we do evolve out of doing simply a first kind of mindfulness, me watching an object, into something else. There are all kinds of names for it. Final knowledge here and now, what the Buddha said. And as I think I just said, he didn't mean here being here at this moment at 7:15 on March 3rd, 2020. He meant a timeless and placeless place. That's what he was talking about, is final knowledge of here and now. And that can happen automatically and spontaneously, but it isn't a me watching my breath. So the problem with the mind controlling what we're doing is that it is covering over what we already are, what you already are, what everyone already is in their hearts, which you can intuit, which I suspect most of us do intuit. Otherwise, why in the world do you keep coming? Why in the world do people keep coming to this? Because there's something that pulls us. That first kind of mindfulness, when we're working with an I, a me, is like, so thinking some images, like wallpaper covering the wall. The first kind of mindfulness is the wallpaper. The wall is what we deeply, deeply are know about. What was another one? Paint covering a gold statue. It's the paint. And as I'm not trying to diminish it, because the first kind of mindfulness has meant enormous benefits for every one of us who practiced it. But the point is that there are more. Like clouds covering the sun. Does that make sense? And again, please hear, I'm not trying to say bad. It's not bad. Powerful. I think we're all incredibly indebted and grateful and love that practice. And yet we still hear in our heart that, okay, but there's something more. There are enormous number of names for it. By not only the Buddha, who I read in one place, in one section of his discourses, he used 33 different names. This is Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who analyzes such stuff. More than 33 different names for the final knowledge here and there. That's just from the Buddha. Wise seers throughout the world, across traditions have used other terms, and I've talked about those before. You've heard them before, whether it's true knowledge, or Buddha nature, or pure awareness, Christ consciousness, God sometimes, just many, many, many. The infinite, the formless. And I thought what really appeals to me deeply is true home. A true home. All of them the same. You just take because words don't do it. So words just don't do it. Here's a quote from Muji, who is a contemporary teacher. Some of you may know of him in the Hindu non-dual tradition. And he said, before the first thought was conceived, or the first form appeared, the infinite self is. Now, when he's using self, that's capitalized. It's not me, I. But that which is infinite already is. This is what all of this refers to in many, many different ways from different teachers, different traditions. Again, the clouds covering the sun. The sun is what we feel and are already. So this true home is what I'm going to call it tonight. It is experienced in the stillness. It is simply being still. That's the homecoming, the awakening. And it happens when mindfulness practice evolves into the second kind of mindfulness. The second kind of mindfulness. So what is this second kind of mindfulness? It doesn't focus on a subject. There is no subject there, no anchor for our attention. It is simply relaxing into the stillness of what you already are. And when that happens, and when that relaxation happens, actually, there's no you there either. And it's so interesting because I know we, as Westerners, really get caught up in this selflessness. The Buddha called it anatta, like impossible to understand that. It is. The mind can't grasp it, it's only words. But it is what spontaneously, automatically happens when there is this relaxing. You don't do it. You can't do it. You can't become selfless. Can you see why? Does that make sense? There's a little bit of a contradiction. I cannot become selfless. But you already, deep down, there's a place that's universal. That's not about you. Within all of us. I mean, it's crazy ways of saying it. There's no real way of saying it. But I hope I'm making the point. So some people, what's happened, can stumble into this without even knowing about it. And as I've told you a bit about my story, which is what happened to me. I mean, I wasn't even meditated, didn't know anything about anything, and it just happened. And when I was quite young, and it changed my life. Other people here, I know, have experienced it also directly, because that's all that can be done, a direct experience. It's not thinking about it, not wishing for it, not willing it or disciplining yourself. It's directly experiencing it. And people over the world, worldwide, have experiences. Problem is that many people don't value it or credit it well enough because they don't know what it's about. This is, I think, the value of talking about it. Like, they experience, I just heard someone the other day talking about her experience, direct experience with this, but she said, because she was trying to do something else and something happened and she kept saying, oh, that's so fresh. And she said, so I reset, everything got reset and she was talking about something she was working at with mindfulness, or I can't remember exactly what, but it was like resetting. And I just pointed out, and I don't even know if, just in a word or two, because we were doing something else, that what she was experiencing was deeply what she already is. But I think a lot of us are in that place. We just don't know. We've experienced it, but yeah, it was something different. But life is so urgent, and we go on with it and kind of don't honor it. So some of you have experienced it, and others of you, I suspect, here are sitting here and don't have a clue. Like, well, so what do we do about that? Maybe you have felt it within, but like, okay, and so what? What about it? So what I would like to do tonight is introduce a kind of practice. It's a formal practice, but it can be done anywhere, formally as you meditate, not formally, whatever. Not my own practice. This is practicing been practiced widely. I think, although the Buddha didn't talk about, let's face it, the Buddha lived, 2,500 years ago, 400 years ago? And he was a pioneer. He couldn't and didn't say the whole thing. A lot of people try to say it more completely these days. He's had editors down through the generations who didn't know what he was talking about necessarily. Who knows? But this has got to be what he was pointing to, because this is where you final knowledge here and now. The unborn, in other words, unborn, the uncreated, the undying, the unformed, all of this, the deathless, all of this, referring to it, can only happen when you really rest or relax into what you are. And one way we can begin to do this is through a path of inner inquiry. The Buddha called it investigation. But he was talking in terms of first kind of mindfulness. We hear it all the time, and the lists he mentioned, it's one of the seven factors of enlightenment. He's got a lot of lists. Investigation is part of it. That's when you investigate what you're paying attention to. In the second kind of mindfulness, instead of paying attention to an object, a form, you turn inward. Deeply, not to the psychological, not to the phenomenal you, but inward to awareness that holds it all. It's a turning inward. It's a turning away from forms, which may or may not make a whole lot of sense. Our world is composed of forms, right? We've talked about this, or at least I've talked about it several times, when we talk about the phenomenal level in which we live, the everyday level and its forms. And there's what the heart knows. That's formless. There's something you really, really can't adequately put words to. You can't see it. You can't identify it. And yet it's there. And that's where this second kind of mindfulness goes toward. Mindfulness practice will go toward that. So as I said, there are a lot of traditions that do this. In the Zen tradition, for example, they have a practice called koan, and I've talked about that sometimes, where you have a kind of, it's like an existential riddle that has absolutely no verbal answer. You have to directly experience it. And you do it by inquiring, not intellectually, but going deeper and deeper through the levels of intellect till something explodes. You got it. A wordless something. That's in Zen. Other traditions have it also. Non-dual tradition uses it. And I'm going to be talking again about inquiry, and I'm going to be adapting a form of inquiry that is used in the non-dual tradition to the way we do things. And especially a teacher named Muji, that I've talked about just a minute ago, it's grounded in the heart's yearning for truth, for the true home. Inquiring into everything. Recognizing, okay, this isn't it. Oh, that's not it either. Going through and through until you find, and until it's touched, and it's known when the true home is touched. Okay, it kind of arises inside. All of that can sound really abstract, right? Like, what in the heck is she talking about? So what I want to do is to just kind of give you an example of inquiry. So you're sitting here tonight, and say you think, as I'm speaking, oh, gotta go over to the store and pick up something tonight for dinner. I'm getting kind of hungry, actually. And you think, well, should I get chicken? Maybe they have their salmon special. And your mind kind of goes off and thinks about all of what that will be. And then, inquiry. You say, okay, you catch it. And you say, okay, let's apply inquiry. And then the thought is, who is asking this question? And the inner response, oh, this is subtle, silent, can be silent. Or you can be writing it down. I think that's really helpful. But silently, just say sitting there, writing it down. You say, well, I'm asking the question. And then you recognize, well, this is not final knowledge here and now, right? You know that one for sure. This is you in all our conditioning. Not bad, but it just isn't final knowledge here and now. So you recognize, okay, the I who is asking that is the I who is identified with my personality, my history, my place, my time, our conventional I. And again, it needn't be said in words. Even the inquiry needn't be said in words. You just feel it, the inquiring mind. There used to be a publication called Inquiring Mind. They had a lot of words around it, but this is the inquiring heart. Maybe we'll say it that way, the inquiring heart, going deeper and deeper. So you recognize, okay, this I that I'm identifying with isn't final knowledge. There actually can be a bit of space around that. I get a bit of relief when that recognition happens. Wait a minute, I'm not only this I. You know it. When you say, wait a minute, you recognize your identification with self, small s, myself. Oh, that's not final knowledge, there's something more. There can be relief. And I will then say, in meditation, haven't you known how often when there is a sense of relief and openness, an opening happens, we say, great, it's been a good meditation. Do you ever do that? I have. That's not the end. Because a sense of relief comes, or a sense of openness or lightness comes, and it's going to go. And then there's some anxiety, and oh no, I got to meditate again. We're trying to meditate away our anxiety or through it or see it more clearly. And when we do, again, it feels like a good meditation. All of that is phenomenal. It comes, meaning it's impermanent, comes and goes. So there can be relief when we discover that, and we know that we haven't reached the final knowledge of here and now, true home, true home. So then you go on and you say, okay, so what is it? And here's what you could be doing, theoretically. Okay, so I'm recognizing I'm identifying with myself, a person. And you say, okay, that's not final knowledge. And then you say, so what is final knowledge here and now? You see, right here, the heart is asking that question. What is it that abides, which stays? And you ask. And then the mind goes, you don't know. It's not there. It's not right on the tip of the mind. It doesn't explode into the mind. Or else maybe you'll say, well, okay, true home, that's the answer. Or Buddha nature, that's the answer. Those are just words. See, it's not about what anybody tells you. It's about your own inner inquiry and about finding it true for yourself. So you get stuck with the and then the mind is going to jump in and says, oh my goodness, Susan's been talking for 10 minutes. I haven't even been 20 minutes. I haven't even been listening to her. This is what the mind does. It jumps in, you see, and changes the subject. And that's normal that the mind is going to do that because there's something profoundly difficult. The mind does not want to recognize this. So then you could go off into a tangent and say, well, Susan never says anything interesting anyway, so it's okay if I missed out what she's been saying. And then, I like so-and-so much better as a teacher. And then you go into an evaluation and then you're off. Or else you could say, oh my gosh, I haven't been listening. I'm such a terrible listener. I'm not mindful. Then you're off on another tangent. These are the kinds of things the mind supplies. So having stopped with because there's no way I can explain or say final knowledge here and now, stopping with the I'd like to say a few comments about this whole process that I've just outlined. The asking, what is it that is here? What's holding all of this? And you keep backing, away, and there is something that can be discovered directly. Now, if you are in that inquiry and not hearing what me or any other teacher is saying, or whatever, that's great. It's the most important thing you can be doing. It's not what somebody else is telling you. It's your own inner inquiry. That's what your spiritual path is about. Yes, we learn from others, but it isn't just about hearing the others time and time again. You've got to make it your own. And that's part of, as the Buddha taught. We won't go into that one. But making it your own, that's what it means. It's not just listening and hearing and absorbing and putting it up there. It's got to soak in and become part of your being. So, one thing. And second thing is that your mind will jump in this entire process. It's going to change the subject as often as it possibly can. Minds don't like to do this, don't want to do this. For 1,001 reasons, maybe the biggest reason is that there's no role for the mind in this, for thinking. And the mind doesn't want to be displaced because, heck, it's the center of our experience, is it not? It's like the mind. And it does not want to be displaced from that. But this is not about the mind, it's about the heart. I'm using big words, abstract words, but it just isn't about it. So it resists the inquiry. But say at that point where your mind starts going, when you say, so what's holding us all? And then you say, so what is it that's noticing that I haven't been listening to Susan? Do you see how it can step back? It doesn't have to be any stop. You could keep inquiring. What is it that's noticing that? And you try to feel it, not answer. You feel it. And more, you're peeling away layers in that process. So that's the process. Now, it can take months, years, I have no idea. It's the process of seeing more and more clearly what you are, what that final knowledge or that true home is not. You notice this, and no, that's not it. You can feel that. And you keep backing and backing. You're getting clearer and clearer. Who knows? No one can say if and when that direct knowledge occurs. But it's there. It's there, and you know it already because you are it. It's like, oh, well, everybody else can get it, but, as one student once told me, I'm so remedial. No, it's not about being remedial. You are it. Know that. You can't, as I said, you can't lose it. There's nothing in the world you can do. You can be in the prison. You can do whatever. You can't lose it. You already are it. It's just about being quiet enough and letting go. We use that term. It's about letting go. But heck, we cannot let go of ourselves, as I just said. That's the paradox. The letting go has to happen. And it happens because you have a sincere heart. Because you're honestly and sincerely inquiring. So further comment I'd like to say to this, and then I want to stop because I would like to give us a little chance to ask questions, hoping you will. Another comment I'd like to say is this doesn't have to be done, can't be done every day all the time. I'm not suggesting you go through life and the whole deal is inquiring every moment. You can't do that, you won't do that, and you shouldn't do that. You need to be able to notice the truck coming down the road or whatever else. You've got to be able to live on the everyday, in your everyday life. But as you practice this, the momentum grows, the power of it, as inquiry grows. So I said as a final comment, it's not. This practice complements the first kind of mindfulness. We need to know who we are on this personal level. It's not about bypassing you as a personality, as a person. We need to, as some people have observed, grow up as human beings, as individuals. And we do that with first mindfulness. It helps us. So it's not like there's one and there's the other, and this one is the right one and that one's the wrong one. They both are there. But opening our hearts and minds to the fact that this transformation of mindfulness is possible, and if your heart yearns for your true nature, then that's a way to go. And inquiry, this inner inquiry, is a path that has been used for thousands of years by different traditions. So, I love the Buddha's comment when he said, "Come, find it true for yourself." We have used that on many levels to apply to many levels of the teaching, and they're all true. It's also true to this level that I'm talking about. So thank you for listening. So let us now settle in for a meditation. And I'm going to be guiding a meditation and inviting you to move into the meditation that many of you know called Choiceless Awareness. I'm going to guide it in case you haven't done it before. And that is allowing yourself just to sit comfortably but alertly in your chair and putting your hands on your laps, your feet on the floor. The reason why we do that is to allow our posture to support what we are doing inwardly. And what are we doing inwardly? With our attention in choiceless awareness. I'm going to invite you first, and let's just go through this step by step as we go along. Allow your attention to come to your breath, or any object of attention that you have usually used in mindfulness meditation. And if you haven't done mindfulness meditation before, just notice the sensations, just the breathing, as you breathe in and out through the nose, if you breathe through the nose. Just stabilizing for a moment. In this breath, the experience of this breath, experiencing the air flowing in and the air flowing out. The touch sensation of the air as it flows in and out through the nostrils, or in and out through the mouth, if you're a mouth breather. Just relaxing into this breath. Noticing the in-breath and noticing the out-breath. Your own natural breath, not controlling it in any way. What you are doing simply is being present, letting the breath breathe itself. And remembering when the mind wanders and thinking begins to happen, it's not a problem. Simply noticing, thoughts arising. And when you notice, unhook, pull out gently from those thoughts and return again gently to your breath. Just resting there. When you feel just a little bit settled, stabilized, just a bit, no perfection here, just a bit of settling into your breath. I invite you to let go with your attention of the breath. And instead, simply allow whatever arises to your consciousness arise. No attempt to control anything. No object of attention. No censoring. So thoughts are just fragments of thoughts will come. Maybe some fragment of an emotion or a sound. Wherever your attention goes, allow it to do so. Maybe you'll be noticing shadows behind your eyelids. Letting it all come. If you find yourself caught up in thoughts, you may want to go back to your breath for a moment, or maybe you can just let go and rest in the natural play of the mind, of the conscious mind. With this whole parade, unfurling of images and sounds and whatever. So surfing your consciousness, not getting stuck in any one place. And when you do get stuck, no problem. Simply unhook and let it all flow again. And as thoughts, emotions, or whatever else passes through your consciousness, I invite you to ask a question internally, and that is, what is noticing this parade of impressions that's passing by? What is noticing that? Don't come up with a mind answer, just notice what's noticing. In other words, it's taking a backward step with your attention, stepping back from all the different forms, we'll call it, whether they're thoughts or sounds or emotions, whatever, stepping back and touching into the awareness that notices them, that holds them. And you don't have to try to stay if you have touched into awareness. You don't have to try to stay there. Just allow the mind to do what it's doing. And you notice, letting it flow. And then inquiring, stepping back. What holds this flow of phenomena, this parade in the front of your consciousness? Again, whatever is going on in your mind right now, asking, wherever your attention is, asking, what's noticing it? You may be noticing that's what passes through your mind is pretty chaotic. If you're looking closely, it's all kinds of stuff comes up. Ask yourself, is what is noticing the chaos? Is it chaotic? Is what is noticing what passes through your mind, is it chaotic? Not trying to be still, not trying to do anything, except to be aware, being aware of what's passing through the mind, and then inquiring, what is it that's noticing what's passing through the mind? What's passing through the mind can make a lot of inner noise, so that is a lot of activity. But is what is noticing, does that make noise? Or is it silent? Is what is noticing not only silent, but silence itself? Recognizing that everything that is passing through the mind, the thoughts, the emotions, they're like lightning playing on the surface of your being. What is noticing that lightning? Lightning comes and goes. Does what's noticing come and go? Now bringing your attention, please, back to your breath for a moment as we come to the end of this meditation. And inviting you to offer up the sincerity, the experience of looking in to what's true. Offering that up right now, if you wish, for the good of all beings on this planet that is suffering from so many different disasters, so much pain. The coronavirus being only one. To those in Nashville tonight who are suffering from the terrible tornado that destroyed so much of that town. Offering up for whomever you wish to offer your blessings. Blessings to all of us.